at 20 years of age, the youngest of you. Civilians, you were children, maybe adolescents, and you lived through the occupation, the fighting, and the painful consequences. But before I salute your heroism, permit me, dear veterans, to remind you of the context of the battle that took place. In order to launch this vast military operation, the biggest ever, the discussions were very difficult and long between the strategists, who were General Montgomery, who was Chief of Land Forces, who very much favoured an assault at high tide and overall at night, as happened in Sicily and in Italy, to the other extreme where Admiral Ramsay, who preferred an assault by day. And it was this that took priority, the assault by day. And this was because of the reason of risks of collision between the hundreds of barges which were approaching the beaches. As for the choice of high tide or low tide, it was the appearance of obstacles and barriers on the beaches which would answer this question. So that the embarkations on the beaches would not be spoiled by dangerous traps which were mined, it was necessary to make the operation at low tide. So these two conditions determined the choice of D-Day. Because during a month there are very few days where the tide is low, just a few minutes before daybreak. The impatience of the soldiers was difficult to control. However, the date of the 5th of June, with a reserve of perhaps 6 or even the 7th, was decided. Eisenhower took the final decision, the historic decision, to delay the operation by 24 hours because of bad weather on the 5th. But this attack was far from guaranteed, as Eisenhower would underline much later. Because in order to breach the Atlantic Wall over a total of 80 kilometers of frontage, the Allies had assembled a force, a very impressive force of 9,000 ships, 11,000 planes, 160,000 men, and 20,000 vehicles. And during the first hours of the 6th of June, the German fortification gave way. Chronologically, we can separate this operation on the 6th of June into 3 stages. The invasion by air, which in our area was the parachute landings at Ronville and Benneville of the 6th Airborne Division of General Gale, with the taking of the bridges over the Caen-la-Mer Canal and on the Orne, at Merville with the capture of the battery and the distractions of different crossings over the Dee. The second operation were the bombardments from the air and by sea, and then lastly, the third, the landing of troops on the beaches. Only 2 more pages to go. Also, on the 6th of June 1944, the Allied Supreme Commander, the Allied High Command, under the authority of Eisenhower and Montgomery, Land Forces, launched, after a very long preparation and fairly intense, very intense training, the operation to invade Normandy. This operation was well recognized as the most important of World War II. By air, by sea, this affair, unique in history, qualified the title of an armada. Their mission was to set foot on the five invasion beaches in Normandy and to break through the Atlantic Wall which defended the coast of Europe, and then to establish a solid beachhead which gave access to the channel. Our sector here was liberated by troops composed of British, under the command of Lord Lovat, who commanded the 1st Special Service Brigade, number 3 Commando, number 4 Commando, number 6 Commando, and the 45th Royal Marine Commando. And 177 French commandos under the leadership of Commandant de Vaisseau Philippe Kiefer, who were integrated into number 4 Commando. Tuesday, the 6th of June 1944, at 19:15 hours, the liberators were on the outskirts of Amfreville at Les Caux. At 2000 hours, Le Plan d'Amfreville was taken without too much difficulty. But the enemy installed himself in the neighbouring village of Bréville-les-Monts, where a very bloody contact involving hand-to-hand combat took place. The enemy was very determined, and on the morning of the 10th of June 1944, after a very a severe mortar barrage, an attack by 2 German battalions was launched against the Allied positions. After 3 hours of combat, not without losses to both military and civil, the positions were retaken. The battle for Le Plan was definitely won. From the 10th of June to the 26th of July 1944, the commandos maintained this head here, and Amfreville showed that here at Amfreville, which showed that the Battle of Amfreville played a major role in the liberation of Normandy itself. In total, this enormous battle that took place in Normandy cost many, many lives on both sides. As at the 31st of August, the Allied losses were 225,000 men, of which 73,000 were dead and 153,000 wounded. On the German side, the Wehrmacht lost 400,000 men. Clearly, a decisive event of the Second World War, the Battle of Normandy, was really a sign of a new dawn for Europe. The importance of these ceremonies, it's not necessary to show them, but it is important to transmit to new generations the awfulness of conflict, but also to remind people of the fragility of the peace that we have enjoyed for the last 67 years. Also here, at this moment in Amfreville, we must have a thought for the men who sacrificed their lives for our freedom, the freedom of the people of Europe. And we must also have a particular thought for the men that we used to have the pleasure of seeing every year in these ceremonies, but who unfortunately have left us over recent years. I hope that their families who are here present today know and are assured that their memory will live forever in the memory of us, the Amfrevillais. Those heroes are well respected, and you can be well pleased with their application. We must also finally have an equal thought for the victims, for the civilian victims of our village, who we also are here today to give homage to the civilian victims.